The health benefits of ayahuasca coming up. Hi everyone, this is Dr. Ernesto from AttaBoyCowBoy, and this channel we give you health and wealth tips to help you be more successful. Now today I'm in the Cocora Valley, about an hour outside of Salento, Colombia. This is the capital of coffee in the world. Most of the world's coffee is produced in this region, and today I went on a hike through the cloud rainforest here, and I found some amazing views. I wanted to share this with you as I share with you my experience with ayahuasca, or as some of the natives call it, Yagé. Now over the years, I've evolved. Throughout my lifetime, I've always avoided drugs, alcohol, pretty much anything that's mind-altering, even things like coffee. I don't do anything like that. So it was a big leap for me to try ayahuasca. And what set me on this journey was my research. I've been doing a lot of research for a book on habits and a book on supplements. And I was reading psychological and clinical studies on depression and high performance and everything else I could get my hands on. I couldn't overlook the fact that I kept finding research and articles about mushrooms, psychedelics, LSD, and ayahuasca. In fact, I even saw studies on toad therapy, where people will pop pimples on toads and ingest the fluid and it makes you hallucinate. And all this stuff sounded really strange. So I started reading a lot of the writings by other high performers in the world, other writers, and then clinical studies. And I started seeing, hey, a lot of this stuff, people are actually using it and they're having success with it. So the more I read, the more my mind opened up to it and I became more aware. The second breakthrough I came across was a research by the Veterans Affairs Hospital, the VA hospital, which is the hospital system in the United States that treats soldiers. I used to work in the hospital treating soldiers that had been damaged psychologically or were drug dependent, and I saw that a lot of them struggled, and we had very few options for treating things like PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress syndrome. And what I saw is that recently the VA approved the use of mushrooms to be used as a treatment for patients that have anxiety, PTSD, panic disorders, or other types of psychiatric disorders. And the outcomes have been awesome. No deaths, no side effects. I mean, you can't say that about anything. Even aspirin causes death and side effects. About 6 months ago, I was on Facebook and I saw a message from my cousin Julio saying goodbye to everybody. He had COVID-19, he was on a ventilator, and basically the doctors told him to say goodbye to everybody. So I immediately called him up and told him, dude, stop being a wuss. You're a Marine and you're a soldier, and failure is not an option. So you're gonna recover, and we're gonna go to South America. I'm gonna take you to the rainforest. You're gonna recover. So hopefully that helped. He recovered, thankfully, and we came to South America. One of the first things we did was we came to the rainforest, the Amazon rainforest. We looked for some Indians. We went to an indigenous village and we tried ayahuasca for the first time. Of course, I had been researching this for over a year. It was carefully thought out. I found a village, it looked legit. We went to the shaman and we tried our process. It was an interesting experience. And immediately after I took it, my personal experience was I started thinking about a recent relationship I had that lasted about a few years, and it was a tumultuous end. And I thought about all the things that happened, all the things I did wrong, how I could improve. I forgave the person, I forgave myself for doing the things I shouldn't have done, and I learned. And then I started thinking about dating apps, about how I had been meeting people on dating apps, and how they had been destructive for me. It was a negative force because it was creating kind of a grass is greener on the other side kind of mentality, where I was constantly seeking new partners. And that was not productive, and it was not in line with my goals or the things that I value. So I realized that that was something that I should let go and not do anymore. So overall, I felt like it was productive. That evening after my ayahuasca journey, I went home. I didn't really have very many side effects during the process. I saw my hand blurring a little bit, but I went home and I felt extremely focused. I turned on my laptop and I just started resolving and dealing with multiple issues I had pending in my email inbox, things that I had been putting off for weeks, sometimes months. I got rid of them like about an hour or two. I just made a bunch of decisions about things I needed to take care of. I dealt with them and I felt great. A couple days later, I decided to go back. I did a second treatment. So I had asked the shaman and he had told me, the more treatments you do, the further you open up to the great one, which is God or whoever that might be, and the more help you're gonna get. So I took his advice. I went back the second time. The second time was a little more aggressive. He gave me 4 doses of ayahuasca, which he did the first time. I know with my cousin, he gave him 1 dose and he had an immediate reaction. It took 4 doses for me to react both times. The second time, I was vomiting. Again, I was hallucinating. I was seeing my hands. And I was really perceptive to sounds. I could hear everything. And especially since I was in the rainforest, as you can hear, it's really loud here. There's a big river behind me. I could hear everything. It was like I could hear all the birds, the insects. I could feel everything. I had a really heightened sensory awareness, but it didn't feel bad. After the initial vomiting, I just kind of chilled out. I went home and my body knew that was enough. I didn't feel like I needed anymore. My body spoke to me. I was willing to do more treatments, but I knew I shouldn't do anymore. I went home. The last 3 months since I had those 3 treatments have been very productive for me. I've been very focused. I've been very in line with my routines and the things I like to do. I normally get up at 3 or 4 in the morning. I meditate, I pray, I take cold water showers, I exercise, I write. I do a lot of things, but everything's been really productive. I've been doing all that, but I've been better at it. And I've added a lot of extra things. I'm taking a lot of classes on different things, personal development, memory training, speed reading, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And I feel like I'm absorbing a lot more. I feel really focused. So I feel like it's been a really good experience. So since then, I made this journey back. I'm here again in Colombia. And yesterday, I went for another experience with another shaman. This experience was a little bit different. I went with an actual tribe. It was a family. There was about 50 people there. It was an all-night experience. They weren't allowing videos or pictures, so out of respect, I didn't. I took this initial picture. As you can see here, we're all huddled around this bonfire here in the rainforest. I'd say there was about 60 to 70 people here, and it was an all-night event. There was dancing, there was music, there was singing the whole night. A lot of the people that were there, I'd say, were kind of like hippies. They brought their instruments, and they were really cool. They sang, they danced, they did all kinds of cool stuff. I mean, very talented people. The indigenous people did prayers, they did dances, they did musics, they did all these chanting, and then they lined us up and they gave us our ayahuasca treatments. Before we did the treatments, they made us fill out a survey about why we were doing it, about our health problems, we were taking any medications. That's what you want to do. A good shaman will take into account whether or not you have any disabilities, if you're taking any medications, specifically psychiatric medications. That's the only thing I've read about that you can have a reaction with ayahuasca and some psychiatric medications. So you want to be aware of that. You want to make sure you let the shaman know so that you don't have any reactions. And they asked us all those things. And I specifically told them I wanted treatment for problems I've been having with my lungs ever since I had COVID. I run across some shortness of breath. I've had multiple respiratory infections, etc., things I've never experienced before. So he took that into account, and this time when I had my ayahuasca treatment, I didn't have any visions, I didn't hallucinate, any of that. And my body told me only to take 1 dose. They offered us 2 doses, but my body told me don't do it. So I didn't, I listened. I only took 1 dose, and during the night, I was coughing things up. Even though I didn't feel like I had any problems, I was coughing up like phlegm. So I felt like it had a good reaction on my lungs. Again, it's only been 2 days, but I feel great. I'm here hiking in the rainforest. I'm doing a 4-hour hike here through the mountains. It's pretty rigorous. It's really slippery, it's muddy. There aren't a lot of people out here because it's very tough, but I feel great. In terms of my focus, I've been writing this whole time as I'm hiking. So again, that's difficult to talk or to, verbally speak while you're doing rigorous activity. It's tough. Think about running on the treadmill and having a conversation on the phone or with somebody else. That's not easy. But I've pretty much been walking and talking the whole time, dictating, writing, and working on my new books. So I feel like my lungs are stronger. And again, my mind feels really relaxed. And as for my cousin Julio, that had his treatment a few months ago, as soon as he came back to Los Angeles, he told me he felt as if he had football pads and he had heavy weights on him. And he said ever since he did his ayahuasca treatment, he felt like that had been lifted. I saw him a few weeks after we got back to Los Angeles, and I looked at him and he just looked totally different. His face was glowing, he looked really happy, he lost weight. And I said, wow, you look great, cuz. And he said, yeah, dude, I signed up, I'm taking 5 classes right now at the university. Typically I take 1 per semester. I don't know why that is. He's a veteran of the war in Afghanistan, or Iraq, one of the two, maybe both. And I know he's had some stress and some anxiety since the war, and it's had some impact on his function. He hasn't went into much of his, the details about what he was experiencing, but I can tell he was not really motivated, and he looks a lot better now. He's talking to women, he's trying to date, he's exercising, he's just trying out a lot of new things now. I see him posting on social media, he's focusing on becoming an archer, he's talking about trying out for the Olympics. I really feel like it's had a great impact on him, and he's attributed a lot of the success that he's had since his experience with ayahuasca to that experience of being in the rainforest and taking that. So again, this is all anecdotal evidence, but there is research being done. And if you read a lot of self-help books, you do some research, you'll see that a lot of people that are really successful in the world are trying this out. They're having good success, predominantly with stress and anxiety. I've read cases of people that were depressed or having anxiety attacks for years, did 1 treatment with ayahuasca and it was cured and it went away. So I'm not saying it's for everybody, but definitely there's some benefit there. More research needs to be done, but I'm definitely all in. I'm on my 3rd trip, and I'll probably do it again while I'm on this journey over here. I'm here at least another few weeks in the rainforest, and I'm gonna meet up with some other tribes to try this out, period. Now, in terms of price, I've looked on the internet. There's a lot of reputable sources. You can pay into the thousands with doctors and organized tours and all kinds of stuff. I've been offered ayahuasca for years. I've been offered in the La Condon jungle in the south of Mexico, all over South America, Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, Brazil, Bolivia, and I turned it down everywhere I've been. But I've been with groups of people on Amazonian and other jungle tours that have done it. They told me they had good success, but I just figured they were like hippies. I figured it wasn't for me, so I've never tried it until my last 3 experiences. Now, how do you find a reputable source? That's kind of tough. It's not regulated. You can try out some of these sources that you might find on the internet, or on YouTube. A lot of people have used them. I've seen them charging into the thousands of dollars for one treatment of ayahuasca. Myself, I just traveled to the Amazon. I buy a ticket from LA for about 500 bucks. Accommodations out here in the rainforest are usually a few dollars on a hammock, really cheap. You find the indigenous people, I go hang out with them. They usually charge about 20 bucks or less to get an ayahuasca treatment. So it's very, very inexpensive. But again, you don't know what you're getting. So I recommend going somewhere really deep into the jungle where you can find real Indians and they're not charlatans, they're just trying to turn a profit selling you something that you don't know what's in it. Could even have drugs in it, because sometimes people think you just want to get high. Another issue in terms of safety I just experienced at my third ayahuasca trip was, it was good to be in a large group of 50 because I had some reference. I could see everybody, I could see what they were doing. Some people had diarrhea, some people had vomiting, some people had nothing. Some people were hallucinating. I had nothing. I had a little bit of an upset stomach, and like I said, I coughed up a little phlegm, but nothing else. No diarrhea, no vomiting, no hallucinations, nothing weird. I just kind of chilled out. I was awake the whole night. I was pretty much tired because they were just singing and dancing the whole night. I had a good time. We just hung out in silence. I just kind of thought about things. And the cool thing was, I looked at the indigenous people and I noticed some lady that was in her 80s and some other people that were older, 60s and 70s, doing ayahuasca. I even saw an 8-year-old girl and some other kids doing ayahuasca. And I thought, wow, that's intense. So I asked the shaman and the other Indians. They said, no, man, we do this regularly. The whole tribe, all ages. So they don't really have any adverse effects, because I guess their spirit is cleansed. They don't really have any problems. And the diarrhea, the crying, the vomiting, those are secondary effects of things that you're expelling from your body, like negative energies, negative experiences, things that are pretty much weighing you down in your life. If you think about your life, it's almost like you have a backpack. And every time you have a negative experience, you're loading some weights into it. If you don't find a way to get rid of that through diet, exercise, psychology, ayahuasca, something, that bag is gonna get heavy. You're not gonna be able to hike to this rainforest for 4 or 5 hours. It's gonna be tough. So you wanna clear the load so you can have a happy life and kind of be cool. I find myself being extremely optimistic. I mean, people that know me know that I'm a pretty positive guy, but generally I would say the last 3 months since I tried this, I feel so good when I wake up in the morning. I feel like this is gonna be the greatest year of my life. I feel like I have so much to look forward to. I really feel like it's made a big difference for me. Now, I do have to share one interesting experience that I saw that I never saw in my previous experiences. There was this guy at this last shaman ceremony, ayahuasca ceremony. He had apparently done it previously multiple times and never had a bad experience. However, he came with his girlfriend to the ceremony and they had a dispute about who knows what after we did the ayahuasca. And this guy literally had a bad trip. He was like mumbling, acting weird, flailing. He was acting weird. He looked like he was possessed. He looked like that little girl from that movie Poltergeist or something like that. It's something that I have heard about growing up, going to Catholic church, about being possessed by a demon or something. This guy looked like he was possessed. And the shaman and his other assistants, what I really liked is they looked really confident. They didn't look worried. They just treated this guy for about 3 hours. Everybody kept singing, dancing. They sat this guy in a chair in front of everybody. And I watched, and I was kind of tripping. I was like, whoa, this is weird. The guy was biting people. He bit a few people. I thought he was gonna draw blood. And there was this really strong guy restraining him. There was this old lady hugging him. She looked like she had him like in a headlock, but she was smiling and she was just chanting in his ear. It looked really sweet, but she was definitely doing something. She looked like she was praying. The shaman was flailing him with some bundles of leaves. They were like some jungle herbs. And he took his shirt off and he was like kind of scraping the leaves on his body. He was burning some incense and blowing them all over him. And there was another guy doing the same thing to his legs. While they were doing this guy kept kicking up, literally flailing. They had to hold him up because he kept sliding out of the chair onto the ground. It looked really weird. In fact, it looked kind of scary. Now, eventually, after working on this guy multiple times and not really having success, to be honest with you, they kind of just laid him on the grass on the floor, and they had his girlfriend come over and she had to watch him, and she was crying and she was talking to him and everything else. And after a few hours, this guy just kind of kicked out of it, and he was cool. He was walking around, he was eating breakfast. I went over to him and I talked to him. I go, dude, did you realize what was going on? He said, no, man, I had no clue. I don't know what the hell happened. I just kind of blacked out. I don't know what the hell happened. And I said, really? You don't remember the screaming, the biting, the kicking, all the crazy shit you're doing? He said, no. And I thought, damn, okay, because this guy was fully awake the whole time. And he said he felt awesome. So I went over to the shaman and I asked him, what happened to that guy? Why was he doing that? He said, well, basically, when you do ayahuasca, you're opening your spirit up and you're allowing God, or whatever they call God, to come in and kind of cleanse you and help you and guide you. The mother ayahuasca, they call her, to cleanse you. But in that process of opening up, if you do negative things, like you do drugs, you smoke weed, you get into fights, you do any kind of negative stuff like that, even like having sex and things like that, you're not supposed to do that while you're doing ayahuasca. You're actually supposed to prepare for it by being abstinent and eating well and all this other stuff. If you do anything like that, you open yourself up and you actually make it easier for negative energies to enter your body. So just keep that in mind. If you're thinking of going to do ayahuasca, don't smoke any weed or do any of that other stuff people do. Keep yourself clean. I would recommend going vegetarian, because for me, being vegetarian keeps your body and your soul clean. I think it just makes you more susceptible to the goodness coming into you. On the flip side, although that might sound kind of scary, I do have to tell you about a patient I had that was in his 80s that was experiencing some problems with PTSD from being in a war like 60 years ago. And this guy had a lot of problems throughout his life. And this guy was no crumb, like my grandmother used to call people. This guy was awesome. This guy had a PhD from MIT, one of the best universities in the whole world. He was a brilliant man. And I just couldn't understand how this guy had all these problems. He was super cool when I talked to him. But basically, he told me ever since he was in the war, he's had anxiety and he's had problems from all the ugly things he had to experience. And the only thing that straightened him out after over 60 years of drugs was he did some ayahuasca. And he told me it helped him. And here and there, I've heard stories like that from other patients. So it's probably not for everybody, but I think that there is some good, and it could be a benefit to a lot of people. So if it's something that you're considering, do some research. And if you have any kind of chronic problems, you haven't been able to solve them with pharmaceuticals, it may be something that could help you. So look around and see if there's something that could open things up for you a little bit. Thank you for watching. And from the Cora Cora Valley in the mountains of Colombia, this is Dr. Ernesto Martinez. Thank you for watching. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Goodbye.